Hello?
Louise,
Turn the computer down.
hello?
Can you turn your computer down?
Pardon me?
Turn your computer down, please.
Turn it down.
Because we hear feedback. Hello? Can you turn the computer down?
Yeah, we just turned it down.
Okay, now what is go ahead. Now what's your name?
Waiting. You were waiting for Monday. You're just talk.
Now,
I just wanted to say that I'm white and I've been listening to your program.
Now what's your name? Wait. What's your name, ma'am?
Louise.
Louise, where you calling from?
Michigan.
Okay, so what's on your mind? Now, are you bunchy? Are you bunchy?
No.
Okay, so what's on your mind? You sound upset.
I'm a white woman. How can I be him?
Oh, I don't know. I don't know if it's a man or a woman, Louise. Then what's on your mind?
What's on my mind is you sadden me. I feel like you're part of the problem.
How so?
Well, you're talking about, you're calling black people coons. You're talking about white people always being negative about black people.
No, I didn't say that. I didn't say that. As a matter of fact, I said that all white people are not racist. I've said that repeatedly. Did you not hear that, ma'am?
You may say that, but it's not in how you express yourself.
I express myself very clearly. I didn't say that all white people are mean. And I specify the type of white people that I talk about, which are the white supremacists. I never paint everybody with a broad brush. I'm very specific about the people I talk about.
You know, I just feel that you really truly, it's very frustrating as a white person who, you know, like you say that we say, I have a white friend or I date a black man. And then we say, I don't see color. When you love all people, you don't see color.
Right.
You don't see black. You don't see white. You don't see Chinese. You just love people. You're a human being.
You do see a color. When you see somebody, you see what they are. You can tell a person is Chinese, black, or white. You only see that. You don't see color when it comes to black people. You never hear that when it comes to anybody else but black people. When y'all talk about that black friend, all of a sudden, I don't see color. But you see the color and you see what everybody else looks like, and you have no problem acknowledging that. No, it's not hogwash, ma'am. It's not hogwash.
There's your problem. You cannot accept that people can truly just love people.
Of course they can. I never said that. So what are you talking about?
Just what I said to you.
No, what you're doing now, wait. What you're doing now, you're making up an argument and you're getting upset with your own argument, ma'am. So I want you to deal with my words. I never said you can't love nobody. I never said any of that. So what you're going to have to do is really direct what I said and tell me what you feel about what I said, not what you're interpreting what I said. Because now you're filtering it and interpreting what I'm saying the way you want to interpret it. I never said anything about you can't love somebody. I never said any of that. And I'm not going to defend on myself on something that's going on in your imagination that I didn't say. What problem do you have with what I said? Louise, I'm here, Louise. What problem do you have with what I said? Not your interpretation, ma'am. What I said. What problem do you have?
You're talking about white supremacists.
Right. Which is, do you believe white supremacy exists?
Oh, of course I do.
All right.
It's disgusting.
Absolutely. So what's the problem you have with that? With me talking about that? What's the problem you have with that, ma'am?
It's the things that you talk about that you're I don't know how to explain it to you, but you're extraordinarily how do I say this? I want to use words that like you're hateful. You're
shout out to No Sleep.
Hateful to who?
you know, it's like reverse discrimination.
Oh, Lord. Really?
I was listening.
Ma'am, wait, ma'am. Oh, reverse discrimination?
Yeah.
So are you saying that I'm practicing reverse discrimination?
Let me explain. White people can't use negative or derogatory words towards black people, but black people can towards white people.
Ma'am, are you trying to say there's something called black supremacy? Is that what you're trying to say?
I'm trying to say that black people are just as negative about white people as white people are about black people.
But you still get the loan. You still get the job. Your schools don't get gentrified, ma'am. Black so-called racism or black supremacy is only relegated to name calling, ma'am. So please let's not make black name calling comparative to systematic white racism that has existed in this country for hundreds of years.
You know where you're so wrong.
Please correct me, ma'am.
I'm white. I don't get the job. You know what I had to do? I had to create my job. I had to open up a store because I couldn't get hired. I'm a white woman.
Ma'am.
And
ma'am, just because you didn't get it don't mean that it's not there. Ma'am, just because you didn't get it doesn't mean it's not there for you. Just because you didn't get it doesn't mean it's not there for you. There is not one black person that can prevent you from getting a job anywhere, ma'am. Let's be very realistic.
No, stop. Time out. I didn't say that there was a black person that's stopping me from getting a job.
But when you say there's comparative racism coming from black people, that is what you're saying. There is no comparative racism coming from black people that's equal to white supremacy. Are you trying to say that, ma'am? Because like I said, black racism is just calling names, which isn't racism at all. That's just bigotry.
You know, I'm just going to have to say this, is that you keep twisting what I'm trying to say to you. And that's
Louise, I'm listening to you. Louise, your voice is live on my show. I'm not twisting anything you're saying. Louise, you can say anything you want to say. But the thing is, I don't want you to say I said something that I didn't say. You said, well, you think people shouldn't love each other because that's where I have to stop you. Because you can't just make up something I said to argue with that. I want you to deal with what I say. Go ahead.
You're saying, I mean, you're talking about black women who are with white men, and you're calling them, I mean, as if they're the white men that they're with are their masters.
Ma'am. Have you heard Donald Sterling's tape, ma'am?
Yes, I did.
That sounds like a scene from Django, okay? It sounds like a scene from a slave movie. It's 2014, and you have black women who are dating white men, not in all cases, but you're dating a white dude who's talking to you like a slave wench in 2014. That's a problem, ma'am.
Hello? I'm just going to say, this is what I'm going to say about this gentleman. Okay? And this is just what I'm going to say. What's really on?
Because what you're trying to do, ma'am, you're trying to filter a lot of what you're saying. Just say what's on your mind.
Ma'am. He said it was his culture.
Right.
He tried to explain to the woman that he was raised in a different society. Instead of completely crucifying the man, I'm not saying that he's right in everything that he said. But let's give the man some sort of kudos that he has tried to change.
Louise,
he was raised in a totally different lifestyle than you and I were raised in.
Louise. This is the problem with white supremacy right here, Louise. People, unfortunately, like yourself, ma'am, you give blatant white supremacy a pass. You try to make excuses for blatant white supremacy. You're trying to make excuses for Donald Sterling, ma'am. What he said was inexcusable.
No, I'm not.
Ma'am, you're saying we should give him kudos. We should give him kudos for trying to.
You've got to admit he was set up by her. Number one.
Yes.
Number two.
And yes, does that negate the validity of what he was saying? Of course he was set up. He said those words, though, ma'am.
Of course he did. He did say those words. But come on, you're in. I just don't see him as. I guess maybe. How do I say this? I don't see him as a slave master.
You don't.
I see him as a man that fell in love with a woman, sincerely fell in love with her.
Ma'am, did you not hear him say, I give my blacks cars, I give them homes, they should be happy. I give them a place to live. That's what slave masters would say. So are you trying to say, ma'am, Louise, are you trying to say that you really don't believe that Donald Sterling is a white supremacist?
I don't know enough about Mr. Sterling to be able to say that.
You heard his words.
I didn't hear that.
You heard.
I heard you say that. I didn't hear that in the tape.
Well, that's what, ma'am, that's what white supremacy is. When you are saying that you are better than a race of people based on you being white, that's what makes you a white supremacist, ma'am. Did
he say those exact words, or are you putting words in his mouth?
Let me tell you exactly what he said. She asked him, are white Jews better than black Jews? His answer, ma'am, was yes, 100% they are. Those are his words. So this is not even a question. He said it out of his, not just him saying it, ma'am. He practices white supremacy. Because, see, this goes beyond just him saying words. There was a case for Donald Sterling years ago where he had a housing discrimination case where it was known that he discriminated against black tenants. And he had to make a payout, a federal payout for housing discrimination. So this man has a track record of discriminatory white supremacist practices, not just name calling, but practices where he has disenfranchised the lives of black people. Do you see that as a problem, ma'am?
Yes, I do.
All right. That's all we're trying to say. So what problem do you have with me for pointing that out, ma'am?
It's not that you're pointing out possibly facts. It's the way that you say it.
Oh, really? Okay. So what don't you like about the way I'm saying it?
I just feel as if you're awfully negative against white people, that you don't see that there are good white people.
Ma'am, I never said that.
People, there are Chinese people.
Ma'am, I do business with white people. I'm not negative. I never said anything negative about white people in general. I've said over and over, all white people are not racist, ma'am. I've been pointing out the white supremacists. Whenever I have a problem with a white person, I point out a white supremacist. That's the only type of white person I have a problem with. Any white person who actively practices white supremacy. I should have a problem with that, ma'am, because white supremacy affects my life and the lives of other black people. White supremacy is very unjust. That's a system of injustice. So I can't talk nice about a system of injustice. Would you talk nice and say things in a nice way about a system of injustice?
No, and maybe I should listen to your program more often.
Right.
What?
Louise, who is that in the back? Your husband or your son?
My boyfriend, who is black, who is wants me to tell you that he's posting on Coley.
You got a black boy. I'm done. You got a black boyfriend. Oh God. Oh.
Excuse me, and what is so funny about that? I was married for 25 years to a black man.
Oh God.
I had a child with him whom we lost to cancer.
Oh God. Oh, I'm sorry about that. I don't want that's not cool. But your boyfriend.
And why does that seem funny to you?
How does your boyfriend feel about what I'm saying?
James, you want
He did what? James. So you got a black boyfriend. I'm thinking that, okay. And I've always said this because I don't want to say that you're a suspected white supremacist, but the fact that you will coddle certain white supremacists is very suspect, ma'am. That's very suspect, the fact that you would try to
and see,
protect.
There's your problem, the twisting.
No, those are your words, ma'am. Your words, you were like, well, we got to give kudos to Donald Sterling.
You can't see that people can love people for just who they are and what they are.
You can. I never said that.
Therefore, I have to now be suspect.
Because you're protecting and you're trying to speak up and make excuses for a blatant white supremacist. So
no, I'm not making. I told you that I disagreed with white supremacy.
But you were kind of agreeing with Donald Sterling. You said, well, he was set up. You said he was, your words, he was set up. We got to give him kudos. Those are your words.
I did say that. He comes from a different, I'm not saying that he's right. There's the fine line. But I'm saying that he comes from unfortunately, you and I know this, he comes from a different culture. He comes from a different era. Look, I'm not saying it's the right way. I'm just saying that it affects it has affected him. And I feel like, not that he's right, but I feel like he has made changes.
Ma'am, are you trying to blame his blatant white supremacist mindset on him being old? Are you using the, well, he's old, so he gets a white supremacist pass? Is that the excuse you're trying to use?
Well, I was listening to a black comedian just today, and he was making jokes about older black men that really hate white people, and the whole black crowd was laughing at it. And how when they're to their faces, they're very kind, and they're to white faces, and then when they walk away, they start, I'm not going to use the words that he was using, but that they're cursing, and I mean, I was laughing at it too.
But look, but you're doing another. That's what white supremacists do, Louise. They'll listen to one comedy routine. You'll see one black person, and that's supposed to represent the whole black community. Just because a comedian says that, y'all do that. Y'all base all your views on black folks based on what one or two people say about black folks. Why are you bringing up what a comedian says? What does that have to do with the whole black community?
Because he was pointing out exactly what I'm pointing out to you. If you run into an elderly black man, he just used it as a joke. And it's
because most old black people don't hate white people. That's a lie, by the way. Most elderly white people are still kissing white people's asses to this day. They don't hate no white people. Let's be very realistic. And even if they did, they can't do anything to affect their lives. So let's just be realistic. That's a moot point anyway. They can't affect the lives of any kind of white person. But Donald can. But Donald can't afford. I don't care how old he is. He's affecting the lives of people now. All right? I don't give a damn how old he is. He's just been practicing white supremacy longer than some of the younger white supremacists. He don't get a pass for being old. And that's another cop-out. And that's the problem. People keep making excuses for white supremacy. It's unjust. I don't give a damn if you practice it back in the day. You wouldn't give an old Nazi a pass. You wouldn't say, oh, he was just a Nazi. You got to understand, they came from Germany back in the 1940s. That's just how they were. They still put those Nazis on trial. They put those Nazis on trial now. If they find one that's 110 years old, his ass is going to trial. They're not giving Nazis a pass. So you try to give white supremacists a pass, and that's a problem right there.
Okay, no, I'm not. And number one, what I'm trying to say is hatred. Hatred on the black side for the older culture and hatred on the white side is just as offensive, but it's on both sides.
We ain't talking about who's offending anybody. You're just talking about name calling and offensiveness. We're talking about a system. You keep trying to compare a system of white supremacy to name calling, which is nothing. Being offended, being uncomfortable. It's not the same, Louise. Do you understand that?
Do you truly believe that, and I'm just asking this in sincerity, do you truly believe that all white people are against black people? Because that's the way you sound.
No, you keep saying the way I sound and the way you're insinuating I'm saying. I have not said one word about all white people hating black people. I've said nothing close to that. But you keep filtering that through your mind in order to justify.
What are you talking about? Why are you calling it a white
I've never said that all white people are racist. They're not. I know they're not. All white people are not racist. You keep saying that is not going to make it true. I've not said that whatsoever. But white supremacy does exist. And white supremacy is a problem in this country, and it affects people's lives who are people of color like myself. Does that make sense?
Of course it does.
So why are you're acting like I'm saying something else that's confusing? You're trying to be confused. I've been very specific about what I said, ma'am. I haven't said anything that's confusing, anything that could be left to insinuation. I've been very specific about what I'm saying. But you keep saying, well, you're just making it seem like nobody can love another person. No, ma'am. I'm very specific about what I'm saying. So what's
I was very specific about the fact of what I shared with you, and you started laughing, thinking that it was funny.
It was funny to find out you had a black boyfriend. That was funny, because I tell black people all the time, just because a person is having sex with you, don't think that they don't still have some white supremacist views. And it sounds like you have some suspected white supremacist views, Louise.
I'm not going to sit here and tell you that I'm righteous.
I know you're not.
I'm not going to sit here and tell you that I don't, but it has nothing to do with color. It has to do with how certain people live their lives.
I want black people to listen to you, and I want brothers to listen. People think that if I dick this white woman down, I'm going to really switch her over. You can have sex with white women until you're blue in the face, and they will still have a camaraderie with the dominant society and with some sectors of white supremacy. So this is a great lesson that black people need to learn. And it goes both ways. I talked about how just because a white dude is having sex with a black woman, that don't mean that he's not a white supremacist. And it goes both ways. Brothers get on this thing where white lady's laying up with you. You don't think she won't get up out that bed and practice white supremacy? You got another thing coming.
Now I'm a white supremacist.
I said you're suspected. You're not one. I don't know if you are for sure. I don't know you. You're suspected. You're a suspect white supremacist, ma'am, because I don't know for sure. So I got to put you in the suspect category, because the thing is, Louise, what do you do for a living, ma'am?
Because I couldn't get a job, I opened up a store.
There you go. And how did you open up that store? Where'd you get the money?
I didn't have money. It doesn't matter. I'm not going to sit here. I didn't have money.
Okay. It matters, but I feel you. It matters, Louise, but I feel you. You see, because you don't want to turn it. You're not turning in that white supremacy card, because you know you can get goodies and you can get certain things with that white card. Not that I don't know if you're white supremacist or not, ma'am. I'm not saying you're white supremacist or not. That's why I said suspect. But that white privilege card, you got that. And you know you got it. So this is why you can kind of protect certain people who have certain white supremacist views, because you know the value. Even if you don't have a job, you still got that privilege to hook up with somebody who can give you money to even start a business. See, that's white privilege. And it is what it is. This is why we have to dialogue about it. And we got to be very honest about racism and white supremacy and white privilege. We got to talk realistically about race. And my thing is this. I don't worry about people getting offended, because you're like, I don't like the way you're saying stuff. Well, I don't like white supremacy. White supremacy makes me uncomfortable. You being uncomfortable with the words, you'll get over it. I have black children. I don't want my black children having to go to school with a person who kind of thinks like you, Louise, or a person who's being taught, or a teacher. I don't want a teacher, Louise, I don't want a teacher who kind of has your views teaching my kids. Because you'll slip that bullshit in them. You'll slip that into the curriculum, man.
If I had listened to the white people, I never would have married my husband. If I had listened to the white people,
right,
I never would have told my child, because I was taken aside and told that my child, because she would be mulatto or he would be mulatto, wouldn't wouldn't be accepted in society, and how cruel I would be if I had a child.
I know what they tell you. Trust me, I know. I know the whole conversation your family had. I know, because you got some white supremacists in your family. And that's another thing, because that's why you don't really want to point the finger at white supremacy, because then you're going to have to point it at mom and dad. And that's a hell of a thing to do, because you know how mom and dad, you know how they felt about you getting with that brother. You know some of the words they said.
They were not happy. But you know what? They did change. They were not happy. They tried to stop the marriage. I'm not going to sit here and say that I didn't have the negative influence in my life that way. I did.
I know.
But you know, the whole point is that it was more important that the person that I was with was a worthy person, was a wonderful person, was an incredible man. He was intelligent. He was wonderful. He was a fantastic father.
Absolutely. I believe that.
That's the things that were important. It didn't matter what anybody said to me. It was who that person was.
Right. Right, but again, I get that. But the thing is, the reason why you almost sounded like you were making excuses for Donald Sterling. You were giving him the benefit of the doubt to a certain degree. And you know why you were doing that, Louise? Because Donald Sterling represents your dad. Your dad is Donald Sterling. He has he has the same views. You heard some of that same stuff in your household. And that's why you're not so quick to throw him under the bus, because that's like throwing your parents under the bus. And this is a dialogue that we have to talk about, because if you are a person in the white society and you are not a white supremacist yourself, but then you're surrounded by white supremacists, what do you do? So that's a dialogue that we need to have in this country. We really got to have that dialogue. But this whole thing where black folks can't talk about it, I'm talking about it because that shit is unjust.
Time out. My father and my mother always had taught me, and hear what I'm just about to share.
I want to hear this. I want to hear this. I'm dying to hear this, Louise.
They taught me that I should not discriminate. They taught me to love all people. They taught me that.
But
then the difference. No, let me finish. The difference was, I truly believe that. Thank God they raised me that way with an open mind. But here's the difference. When I took it to the point of dating someone and marrying someone,
yes,
that's when, if you want to call it white supremacy,
exactly,
the lines change.
Are your family? Well, let me ask you this. Are your parents liberals? They're like Democrats.
They voted both ways.
Okay, so one voted.
It depended upon the candidate.
Okay, but you would consider them liberal for the most part. If they wanted you to have friends and they didn't care what you did and all that. Did you grow up have a liberal background?
I had a very firm father who definitely had a course of how he wanted his children to be raised and behave.
Right. But the thing is, that's how white supremacy works. See, people think that a white supremacist, you don't want anything to do with no black people and all. A white supremacist, they don't have a problem interacting with black people as long as the black person is in an inferior position. The minute you date or lay up with, now you're equal. The minute you move next door to a black person or they move next door to you, now it's equal. That's where the white supremacy comes in, because we don't want that. And if you think like that, that makes you a white supremacist, ma'am.
Then I would have to agree with you. If you want to use the term white supremacist, I don't like that terminology.
I know you don't. You know why you don't like it? You know why you don't like it? Because you know why you don't like it? Louise, stop. Louise, you got to stop talking, sister. You know why you don't like that term? Is that because the term, it's accusatory. And it puts the blame where the blame should be. Because the term racism, which I don't like to use, racism gives people an out. They can distance themselves from that. People play games with the word racism. People try to pretend that, well, racism is the Ku Klux Klan. I'm not that. Racism, well, black people are racist. Al Sharpton is racist. So people pretend that racism is just this formless entity that nobody knows what it is. But when you say exactly what racism is and the problem with racism, which is systematic white supremacy, now you're putting it somewhere. You're putting the racism right where it's supposed to be, because that's the problem we have with racism. Not because anybody's calling names. We have a problem with the systematic practice of white supremacy. That's the problem we have in this country.
No, I guess I would have to. I have to agree with you, because there was no one more shocked than myself when I brought before we were married, I brought him home, and he asked my father for my hand in marriage, okay?
Mm-hmm.
And there was nobody more shocked than myself because of the way that I was raised.
Right. Right.
And again, I thank God that my parents at least raised me that way, but yet I agree with you. You're right. It changed when their daughter was going to be with a black man.
Yeah.
And I do agree with you on that. And I saw that. And it disappointed me in my parents.
I can imagine.
I can't change that, but I fell in love with a fantastic person.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So, does your family, have they disowned you?
They did initially.
Right.
They did initially.
Right.
They told my then fiance that he would never be welcome at home.
Mm-hmm.
If I had children, they would never be welcome at home.
Mm-hmm.
And my then fiance sat at the table, and I have to give him absolutely all the credit in the world for his strength and his pride in knowing who and what he was as a man. He looked at my father and he said, "You can discriminate against me. You can keep me away from your home. The only thing I'm asking you is do not cut yourself off from your daughter. She loves you. She needs you. I can live without you."
Mm-hmm. So y'all patch things up with the family, yeah?
We just lived our lives.
Okay.
And then unfortunately, my daughter had a brain tumor, and my parents came to my husband and I and apologized and said that a child taught them how stupid they were as people. She had taught them about the real meaning of love, that they were so sorry for the way that they behaved, that this child had educated them more than anything because of her illness and how much they loved her as an individual, and they apologized for their behavior.
And this is why it's so very important. This country has never tackled the issue of white supremacy ever on a national level. And the sickness of it, where people have to disown their families, and this whole dynamic that's been going on for decade after decade after decade, that's never openly discussed on the national level. And it's a cancer that nobody wants to talk about. When we talk about race, it's always, well, the black folks are the problem, and Al Sharpton. It's all of this deflection. And there's suffering going on in these white homes with white supremacy. This shit is cancerous. It gives privileges and benefits on one end, but it eats you up on another end. And that's something that really has to be discussed in this country. And we got to be brave enough to talk about it and not sweeping that shit under the rug. And then when black people like me, who are not afraid, because I don't give a damn about nobody being offended, a lot of black people don't want to talk about it because they'll get the reaction that you gave. I'm offended by what you're saying, and you get a whole bunch of that. That scares black folks. I'm not scared of that because I can handle that. But we do need to talk about white supremacy, not just racism, specifically white supremacy, and get to the root of it so we can move on from it. If we're going to move on and stop pretending that we're post-racial, and then we have a Donald Sterling and a Cliven Bundy pop out shocking the world, which you shouldn't really be shocked. You feel me?
I understand. I do appreciate the fact that what he did was, what he said, maybe I am making excuses. I don't know.
Mm-hmm.
Okay?
Mm-hmm.
I don't feel that everything that he said was completely, totally wrong.
That's your dad. You're talking about Donald Sterling, right?
Yeah, because I don't know enough about the man to sit here and say. I'm not saying what he
Louise,
did.
Louise, a person saying that black people are beneath white Jewish people, that's wrong, ma'am. There's no way to really filter that. That's wrong. What you heard on that tape of him saying I don't want black people coming to my games. Is that wrong or not?
That's disgusting.
Of course. I don't know why you I don't know if it's wrong. I mean, damn, it's pretty cut and dry. He didn't really beat around the bush. The views this man had were horrible. Him telling a woman if she can not be so black and act more like a white girl, that's horrible. That's not just this, that's horrible. There's no excuses for that. And when you try to make excuses or try to rationalize that, then people are going to look at you as being a suspected white supremacist. And then you say, well, why are you black people looking at us, all white people, as being racist? Because when you co-sign that, that's a bad look. See, black people, if a black person does something fucked up, we'll hey, he's fucked up. He don't represent me. We'll be the first to say it. But when you have the Donald Sterlings of the world out here regurgitating all of this hateful venom, people in the dominant society, they have a tendency to kind of protect this guy. And that's a problem. And if you're going to protect dudes like that in any way, just be ready to be suspected of being a white supremacist yourself. You feel me?
How about just someone who can simply forgive and, and just feel, I'm not saying I forgive him for his wrong, I don't know how to express what I want to express. That's okay.
That's okay. All right, but hey, I got to get some other calls. But thank you so much, Louise. And tell your husband who's dating you, is this him? Hold on, I got a video for him.
What about black on black crime? Where the white women at? All white peoples ain't bad. We is our own worst enemy. What about black on black crime? Where the white women at? All white peoples ain't bad. We is our own worst enemy. What about black on black crime? Where the white women at? All white peoples ain't bad. We is our own worst enemy. What about black on black crime? Where the white women at? All white peoples ain't bad. We is our own worst enemy. What about black on black crime?
Hey, that goes out to Louise's dude. Shout out to Louise's dude. You got you a suspected white supremacist you laying up with, brother. You might be on the coon train. My God. That's very interesting. That Louise call was very, very interesting. That call was very interesting. See, Louise, she did a very common tactic, which was put words in my mouth, because it's very difficult to... What's up, Ola? Shout out to Ola. It's very difficult to argue with the words I'm saying. I burped, sorry. It's very difficult to argue with the words I'm saying. So a lot of times when people are suspected white supremacists, they'll make up stuff and argue with that. Well, you think that you can't love no people? No. That's why you got to bring it back. I'm not doing that. I'm not about to argue with her interpretations. Let's deal with my words. She knew what I was saying was true. She knew what I was saying was true. That's why she was coddling Donald Sterling. She was making excuses for Donald Sterling because Donald Sterling represents her dad. You dig? That's why a lot of people in the dominant society, they don't want to point the finger at these people and call them the white supremacists they are, because they got one of them in their family. They got a mom or a grandma or an uncle who thinks just like that. Yeah, she tried to be slick with defending white supremacy. She got real slick. She was Louise. She was trying to defend white supremacy. And that's nothing to defend. No, I'm not rubbing salt in her wounds. But no, but a lot of people think like that in the dominant society. A lot of people are like, I'm not racist. I got a family full of them, but I'm not. Look at me. I'm having sex with a black person. And that's another trick. That's one of the biggest tricks that they use on black people. This is why, have you noticed all of these interracial dating shows, and you got the Kanye and the Kim Kardashians and the scandal shows? They got this trick that they're putting on black people that if we have sex with you, that means we're not racist. A person can lick and suck you and get right on up and practice white supremacy like nothing happened. Like nothing happened. And the reality, the truth was seeping in. The truth was seeping in. It's real heavy, man. This is, again, this country, we've never talked about systematic white supremacy. That's something that needs to be talked about. It's a cancer. It's really a cancer that has to be talked about. Whenever we talk about race, we always point the finger at all the black people. That's not where the problem lies, because we don't create the public policies. We don't keep this bullshit going. It's not even, well, you saying that all white people are, that's the go-to argument that nobody never said. Real heavy stuff. After to go on Rush Limbaugh. Heavy stuff.